So, hello. Um, it's been a while since I've done anything, really. It's been a good time since I've made any videos on politics or discussed much of anything. To be honest, I've been following the elections for a while now, and of course, like ever since like Bernie Sanders lost the primaries, I just basically just I had a good moment where I was pretty doomer. I thought that like it was pretty shit how Bernie Sanders had lost and how Biden was running. Um, since then, I've changed a lot of my opinions on a lot of stuff, particularly when it comes to electoral politics. I thought about things a bit more clearly. Um, and honestly, especially given how the elections turn out to be, I pretty much think that Bernie Sanders will have lost the general election against Trump. And not only that, I think that Trump would have won had it not been for coronavirus, and had it not been for just how badly he managed that. I mean, his approval ratings were doing okay when the coronavirus pandemic started, and it looked as if he had a layup. Like he had a very easy election ahead of him, where he could just go right ahead and just have a rally around the flag effect and just go ahead and cruise to victory. But no, he bungled the response. He fucked it up terribly, and then people turned against him very slowly. And he hemorrhaged support until he got to the election, and he ultimately lost. It was very close, much closer than I expected it to be. My election predictions, I had quite a few, in fact. Let me show you. Um, I had my election predictions. Um, I have here, right? So I had my election predictions. Um, I didn't put dates on these, but I basically started making them. Let's see, this first one is from uh, 3rd of August, right? And I just kept making them roughly like once every few days or something, more like every few weeks. And then as the election got closer and closer, I just kept making them more and more for like every day. And we have and basically like I started moving my predictions based on the polls and such. Um, I think I made like around 17 of them or something, right? Uh, and as you can see, like the yeah, there you go. This is my final prediction, and this is the actual results, right? So you can see how like there's such a massive change on the actual results. Like I was expecting Biden to get like 340 electoral votes or so. Like there were a few of these which were iffy, mostly the Georgia votes, and I thought that like Michigan, Wisconsin were like much better off than they really were. And instead, in the results, we have wow, the margins were a lot fucking closer than I expected them to be, like just way more. And it's pretty dramatic, really. I made a few predictions too. Yeah, these are from October. My final prediction 351, and instead we had 306, of course. The Senate elections, this is my first one, and well, I got a few things wrong, obviously. All these Senate predictions, I made 20 of them. These are my final ones. I expected Democrats to get 52 seats, but of course, and I expected like Michigan to be a safe state and such, and instead we had, this pretty shit. Yeah, this was my final prediction. 54 seats, just right, very far off from what we actually had. And of course, these sorts of these sorts of results made it very clear to me that Bernie Sanders wouldn't have won, and he would have actually cost like quite a few seats for the Democrats. I didn't make any predictions for House elections, but these looked also very much like they would stay mostly the same. And instead, we had the Republicans pick up quite a few seats. In fact, I think they picked up literally every single runoff seat. Sorry, um, toss-up seat, except for like one. I think they picked up every single one of them. At least the ones that were considered toss-ups by New York Times. It was pretty crazy, extremely unexpected, really. Um, and it shows that Trump. I mean, I already expected the polls to be a little bit wrong, but I expected that because of the changes they made from 2016 to their methodology and such, I thought that they would be not as wrong, and therefore I could just kind of trust them. But you can't. At least not when it comes to Trump. The polls were basically dead on the money for Georgia, the runoffs. So they were pretty much on the money for the midterms. So yeah, pretty much when you have Trump on the ballot, that the polls are just completely useless. I don't know what the fuck happened. Like it was ridiculous. Like when you have Trafalgar getting the results pretty good. I forgot the papers I made. Like I actually made like a big list of polling, um, like the latest polling at the time of the election from each big pollster, and the actual results and the averages by RCP, and just going through the pollsters, going through the actual results, and basically like kind of seeing where they were wrong, like offside, out of their margins of error. And usually I saw that New York Times and Siena were the absolute fucking worst pollsters. They were fucking. I don't know how they got their numbers. They're considered A plus pollsters by 538. I consider that absurd because they would. I think there was literally one poll, one yeah, there was one poll in one state. I think probably Wisconsin or something, where they got literally Trump down by 3 margins of error. Like absurd, completely fucking absurd. Something that should never fucking happen unless you're just basically making up numbers as you go along or something. So that's basically a fucking F minus poster for me now. How do you get numbers that fucking badly wrong is beyond me. So I hope they fire all the posters or something, but I know that that's not what's happening. So I can see how these kinds of things they lend credence to the idea that maybe maybe the posters are like some conspiracy or some shit. Because yeah, good luck explaining these kinds of fucking numbers without having some conspiracy going on behind them, right? But besides that, we have just talking besides that, we go into the actual elections. Biden thankfully won, um, and honestly, I've changed my opinion on Biden a good bit. He's gotten a lot better, and actually, he's quite acceptable, especially what he's been doing the first few days of government. Very good. Um, of course, I'll have to sit away from U.S. elections for a while now. There's not much to be said. I will be checking up like on Trump's impeachment, maybe the filibuster vote or something. But I'm basically staying away from U.S. politics after this until the midterms, I suppose. There's a bunch of stuff that's going to be coming up. Um, I mean, as an international relations graduate, this is the kind of stuff I got to be checking all the time, right? Like politics all over the world. And I'm gonna be checking stuff on Germany. I think there's gonna be the election this year. There's going to be elections in Hong Kong, which I am sure people are interested in seeing. I'm not sure how much analysis can be made. I guess I could sit down and have a look at like the polls, the results and such in Germany, and not make predictions because these working democracies, these functional democracies, not as interesting to make predictions about because I mean you have the polls, and the polls generally aren't too far off, and you have a person that gets the most vote and he wins. Of course, you have the seats to think about, but that's so complicated to do, and it's basically would be like making um, House of Representatives predictions. You're basically looking at like 300 plus individual races that you got to be fucking thinking about. Like, no, 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 no. That's ridiculous. Like, that's way too much for me. And I think beyond any individual person's ability to really make any meaningful predictions, except when talking about broad strokes, like, oh, I think this party is going to be picking up seats, this party is going to be losing seats and such. There's going to be the Scottish election, which is going to land into the independence referendum, which should be happening sometime this decade. So that's going to be interesting. I think there's a lot of analysis to be made there. I hope to be talking about um, a lot of these subjects from now on. I basically just sat out of YouTube and making videos and anything because honestly, like the stress, man. Like I was really distressed over this election. I was really distressed over everything that was happening. And I mean, then we had stuff like Ruth Bader Ginsburg just dying. Like fucking hell, man. If she stayed alive for literally 2 more months, that would have already been enough to be too close for them to really be able to ram through some Supreme Court nominee or whatever. And now we have Amy Coney fucking Barrett. Like, what a piece of shit they put in. My God, like, there's some analysis to be made there, I guess. Like when the, I mean, I could make a few videos about the future of American politics, taking a look at say, oh, when are these Supreme Court nominees gonna, Supreme Court justices gonna be replaced? There's an interesting discussion to be had there. That's gonna be happening sometime soon because we have some pretty old people in there, in their 80s. Um, that's something interesting to be taking a look at and see what happens, right? And what I wanted to do today is talk about, I suppose, talking about just how bad the situation is for Republicans right now, like the future of American politics when it comes to the federal elections for president, um, and a little bit about the parties themselves. So we just had probably one of the best case scenarios come up out of this election for everybody involved. Of course, not the Republicans and Trump and such, but fuck Trump, fuck the Republicans, fuck conservatives. These people aren't really trying to make the world a better place, so fuck them. So very simply, right? That was the best case scenario in the case of a Democratic victory. The Democrats won, but by the skin of their teeth, and all their alliances, uh, all of the hands they shook, all of the groups they brought along, all of the support they took from other people, everything came along together to produce them a bare minimum victory. That is a very good thing. Why? Very simply, it lends more strength to the idea that you need to have a strong coalition of voters to come out and vote for you. And that includes the leftists. That includes the non-establishment Democrats. That includes progressives. That includes democratic socialists. That includes, everything left of Bernie too. All of those people had to come out and vote for Biden in order to get him over the top and win against Trump. And another thing that does is that it prevented an implosion of the rather flimsy coalition that the Democrats were building. Like they were appealing with never Trumpers. They were appealing with establishment Republicans. I mean, fucking John Kasich spoke at the DNC. Um, we had Lincoln Project and all that stuff, and then we had, of course, Bernie Sanders on the coalition. We have like AOC. We have all of these people, and even more leftist movements, all working towards getting Biden elected. So, hang on. All of these things came together to produce a close win, but a win nonetheless for the Democrats. And that puts them in a situation where they can't just snub out any of these groups. They have to work with them. Now, it is bad that they won with the Republicans helping them. We had a lot of situations where people voted for Biden, but then basically voted Republicans straight down the ticket. Quite a few votes like that, enough to just barely give Biden the win, by the way. So that needed to happen, but it also means that they can't shit on leftists, which is a good thing. And I think it's probably the best case scenario. Like, I don't, given what the demographics looked for the election, it seems like that was basically what needed to happen. And on the other hand, because the Republicans lost, the coalition that built itself around Trump is done. It is dead, it is gone, and it is fracturing as we speak. So that creates a situation where we might even see a third party arise. And there have been very open talks about it. And I think somebody actually filed for the creation of a third party called the Patriot Party, right? That's the name I've seen most get thrown around. Some people are still advocating for the idea that the Republicans become the Trump party, and the Republicans are not okay with that. They can just leave, and then form their own party or join the Democrats or whatever. Um, in any case, this is a good thing because then that basically means that there's no way for the Republicans to ever win an election again until they solve this issue. And it also creates a situation where their flimsy coalition breaks down, and it produces a situation where there's going to be a lot of voter apathy and voter division among them. And not only that, but it also creates a situation where we can see more Biden-esque sorts of situations where the Republicans get so deeply divided, some of them straight up vote Democrat to not let certain people get in, right? So we have a situation where, I mean, let's just show how it looks like, right? So this is a 2024 map for the election, and I'm just gonna fill in like all the safe states for each side, right? So for Republicans, these are the safe states and districts, I suppose. Oops. Uh, there we go. So Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, not Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, Indiana, South Carolina, and Alaska. Am I missing anything? That's about it for safe Republican states, I guess. Democrats, um, Minnesota recently became one. Virginia, definitely. Not Pennsylvania, sorry. Right. Um. Oh, I suppose Iowa should be included. And I am gonna, you know, say that these two are likely Republican, right? Let's say Iowa is also likely. Anything else? I guess I should do the same for Minnesota and New Hampshire. Uh, and that's, oh yeah, and Hawaii. That's about it. Right. So, um, very likely and safe states for each of the sides already puts the Republicans at a situation where they're like, they're 45 EVs off already. They have 35 electoral votes they have to gather just to catch up. Now, to be honest, Florida is 31, and it seems like Florida is slipping a little bit away from Democrats. It seems to be becoming a more Republican state. Not definitely, but it is indeed, and that is the most promising state for Republicans right now. But at the same time, Texas is becoming a flimsier and flimsier state for them as well. So I'm going to leave it as it is because, currently that's what we have to work with. Um, and so we have a situation where basically the Democrats, they only need to win, um, the Midwest, and they already win the election, essentially. Because, I mean, if we were to do that, just give the Midwest to the Democrats, and they already are sitting at 267. If they won the Midwest, well, they almost certainly won, Nevada and possibly Arizona. Maybe they won here um, in Nebraska second. So just basically this already wins them elections from now on, right? So it's just down to the Midwest. And the Midwest, I mean, if it didn't vote for Trump at this time, then I find it very, very unlikely that it would vote for any Republican from now on. And that's the problem that the Republicans are facing right now. What possible candidate could they throw in 2024 that's going to have anywhere near the kind of appeal that Trump had? And not only that, how are they going to deal with choosing a candidate to begin with? The 2024 Republican primaries are going to be a fucking mess. Because all that's going to be happening is that we're going to have like 30 people in a podium speaking to their voters in like one of the first few debates, and it's going to be a race to see who can race bait the hardest, who can be most racist, and who can just appeal to the Trump voter by being the most radical, which would probably put them far ahead in the primaries and put them in a situation where they could very easily sweep the primaries, like just win the early states and then just sweep the rest. But then you have a problem where they have no fucking chance of winning. Like if they run a Trump light candidate, well, it's gonna basically have a little bit of the same appeal as Trump. But oh no, look at this, he's not Trump. And not only that, he's not gonna have anywhere near the kind of appeal. So, well, here you go. Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, um, Nebraska second. They're all gonna go to the Democrats very easily, and then we are gonna have very competitive races for Florida and for North Carolina, and uh, the second district in Maine is also definitely within uh, definitely uh, close enough that the Democrats could get it. Texas is going to be very much in play. Ohio is going to be a lot easier to get. Uh, that's this. I would say that's basically where it stops. Like some of these safer states would probably be a little easier for the Democrats, but I would say that like Iowa at the very most would become a lean state. Ohio is the same. Like Ohio at the very most would become a lean state. Um, I guess maybe like Missouri would become likely or something. Maybe Indiana could become likely again. But that's about it. Like that's where the things would stop. Like the major progress would stop. I guess Georgia could become a lean state, right? That's about where it would stop. Like there's not that much more that the Democrats could get, but it's still enough to win, and it'll be enough to win for a while. And not only that, we're gonna have other issues in other areas for the Republicans. Um, if they try to win an establishment Democrat, establishment Republican, and they actually manage to get him as a candidate, then sure, I think they would hold on a bit tighter to like taxes and stuff, but they're definitely going to lose the Midwest again. They are in a catch-22. They have no way to recover from this unless they radically reform the platform and radically reform their policy positions. But guess what? Here's a problem though. If they do that, they will also hemorrhage voters because they're going to have all the people who are rabidly anti-democrat, rabidly racist, rabidly white supremacist, and these people are not going to turn out to vote for you if you're going to be an establishment piece of shit, you know? So this is a situation where the Republicans they made a Faustian bargain in a way by getting Trump to run and help them win, and they just barely did win in 2016. It was pretty much the only candidate from the Republicans that had any chance of winning was Trump, and the Democrats ran the only candidate that had any chance of losing, especially against Trump, which was Hillary. Uh, I will maintain that if Bernie Sanders had run in 2016, he would have won basically by not losing the Midwest. And that would have been that for Trump. He would have lost. Now, the situation would be so much different. Coronavirus would get blamed on the Democrats. I don't know. Maybe they would stand a very good chance. The Republicans would stand a very good chance of winning in 2020, but they would have ran not Trump, I would say. I would find it unlikely that Trump would have run. But maybe he would have, and then he would have won. But of course, it would be far too old. Maybe he would die in the middle of his first term. I'm gonna be honest here. Like I think Trump is on the way out, even when talking about his life. I think his health and such, like they're pretty bad. Like I think the guy, especially now that he's gonna go to jail and such, like I don't think he's gonna survive for another 4 years. And I don't know, man. Something might have happened to him during Biden's presidency too. Like I think it's very frail to put a whole fucking movement behind a guy who's like 70 what now? Trump must be like 74 years old. That's terrible, man. Like this guy isn't gonna last 10 more years, especially with the way he is, right? So yeah. That said, um, the now so we as I said before, it's the best case scenario for the Democrats that this happened because now it is essentially impossible for them to lose elections unless they just destroy themselves first or they split off into more parties. And this situation gets even worse when we're talking about um, and this situation for Republicans becomes even worse when we're talking about like say for example a third party running. Like if we were to go ahead and add in a fourth party like Trump party, right? I don't know what color. I'm gonna go with orange, I guess. Right? So I added the Trump party here, right? So having a free party system running here, um, well, the Democrats would win Texas for sure, right? Because then the vote would be split three ways. Georgia would be a certain win. Florida would be almost certain win. Um, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Minnesota would certainly be safe. Um, second district of Maine, and basically everywhere would have a situation where like whoever would win would have like I mean, in the other states where Republicans would win, like it would be unsure like where Trump could win. Really, I mean, honestly, I don't know. Like, where could he win votes? Really, straight up, like, where would he just win outright like this? I think, honestly, I don't know. Like, maybe like Tennessee or Kentucky or something. Maybe West Virginia or I don't know, Indiana. Maybe like he could get a few votes, maybe, but that that would just obliterate the Republicans so much because the Democrats they have a strong showing in some of these safe states. Like for example, in Utah, they would have something like 30% of the vote, right? And you have a Trump party candidate splitting the rest of the 70%. Like I don't know, man. Like I could see some people voting Democrat and such, and just straight up having like a Democrat just barely squeak on by and win like Utah. Like some of these states that haven't voted anything but Republican for like the last 50 years, they would suddenly be finding themselves voting Democrat. Like it would just be a fucking a 400 electoral vote blowout, basically, at the very least. Like it would be atrocious of a decision to run a third party, right? Just completely atrocious. It would completely destroy them. Um, I don't know, man. Like, unless like if I were to put a third party and assume the Trump party is just gonna like siphon a few votes away from Republicans and the rest just go for Republicans, still like the Midwest is guaranteed for the Democrats in Arizona and Nevada and Florida and Georgia and North Carolina, all these places would just vote for the Democrats. It is beyond me. Like the third party idea is just so stupid. But hey, and this is something I would suggest for every single person that wants to see the world become a better place. Encourage the Trumpists to run a third party. Encourage them to do that. Say, yes, this is a good idea. We must break this two-party monopoly, duopoly. We must break the two-party system in America. Please create the Trump party. And then don't turn around and create a fourth party by splitting the Democrats. Do not do that. Do not fucking do that. That would be an easy way of actually making the Trump party competitive. And not only that, if the vote was split four ways, I I'm pretty sure there's no way anybody would win, and then Congress would have to vote, and we all know how that would go. Oh man, here's another cool thing too. If the Trump tards run a third party, they're also going to be running local elections, right? And because they're strong in certain localities, they're going to get people elected to like state districts and state senate positions. They're going to be running in those places. They're going to be like helping break the Republican majorities in those places because the Republicans would suddenly find themselves in a situation where, you know what, they could very well play with the Democrats, or the Democrats outright become the party with a plurality in those places. Like that would be amazing, dude. Amazing. Oh, it's beautiful. That idea is so good. So that's one thing to be said. Also, another thing is the United States Senate, right? Um, we're gonna be seeing how things go, but the DC statehood vote and the Puerto Rico statehood vote are two things that are gonna be happening very soon. Within these next 4 years, I would say. Probably both of them are going to become states. And that's going to be very interesting because that means four more senators. And I think that because Puerto Rico is going to become a state, um, with between two censuses, I think Puerto Rico is just going to add more electoral votes without there needing to be any reapportionment. So there's gonna be like instead of 538, it's gonna be like 540 for the extra two senators, but also I think like 547 or something, or 545, because there's gonna be extra votes from Puerto Rico, but there's not gonna be apportionment just yet. And I'm pretty sure that Puerto Rico's, at least early on, gonna be fairly democratic, not by much though, and I can see the Republicans managing to gain some a good foothold in there, you know. But that's a war for the spirit of the fledgling state wannabe, but a state candidate that's gonna be happening. And the in any case, the Republicans are gonna be very much weakened for that, right? So, in all honesty, I would say that basically for 2024 and 2028, without the Republicans making some major shifts, things are looking very good for Democrats. Already 2022, the Senate election, looks like Democrats are going to be picking up seats. And not only that, they're already going to be picking up seats because DC is going to become a state, so 52 for them. And we also going to have we're also going to have a Puerto Rico becoming a state, where probably Democrats are going to win both Democratic seats, Democratic Senate seats. So that's going to be 54 senators for the Democrats, right? And not only that, we're going to go from there and have these 54 seats. They're probably going to be picking up seats in Pennsylvania, in I think Wisconsin, North Carolina, and maybe Ohio. So that's, it could have like 57, 58 seats for Democrats. That's really interesting. Though by then the Senate would have 104 seats, right? And the majority would be 52. At that point, the Democrats would have more seats, would be the majority even without Bernie Sanders and Angus King. But in any case, by then, Bernie Sanders and Angus King might have already retired too. Like, these people are very old, and they need a rest, I think. So we're gonna see who gets elected in their place. I would say because Bernie Sanders from Vermont is gonna be a Democrat, but maybe it's an independent. Who knows? And in Maine, I guess it's gonna be a Democrat. Susan Collins, I don't know how the fuck she won, but that said, that said, looking one more thing just before I end the video. One thing to keep in mind though is the impeachment vote that's going to be happening. I think that's going to be deciding a lot of what will happen with the Republicans. Right now, there are 48 Democratic senators, two independents that caucus with them, and we have 50 Republicans. So that means already 50 votes to convict Trump. That is pretty much guaranteed. So therefore, the Democrats would need roughly 17 Republicans to flip. Though there might be boycotts, there might be Republicans that don't turn up, which makes it a bit less necessary that they need that many people to vote. it seems to be 2/3 of the senators present, and they need 2/3 of the Senate to turn up. So 67 senators, um, and out of those 67, there need to be 2/3. So 67% of 67 would be something like, well, basically something like what, 47, 48 senators? Obviously, not every Republican's going to boycott, and some of them are going to be there to make sure they vote not to convict Trump. And I think we can say very safely there's going to be at least 10 Republicans that are going to be voting to quit. So that's 60 people guaranteed to be there. We also have a few Republicans that are going to be voting to convict. So, and I think that's at least 3 of them, or 4. Let's say 4, right? So that's another 4 people. 64 people are going to guaranteed be there. Mitch McConnell's going to be there. 65. I would say like I don't think there's going to be much of a boycott. Only a few people. So in any case, the Democrats are going to need probably at least something like 10 Republicans to join them. We have Lisa Murkowski. We have Susan Collins. Mitch McConnell might be voting for it, which is interesting, or not. He might just say that he's no longer in office. Don't need to convict him. I would say that the Republicans are not going to convict, right? Oh, Pat Toomey might be voting for it. We might have some other people voting for it because they're going to be retiring. But in any case, I don't think that Trump is going to be convicted. There's going to be a good number of Republicans voting for it. I would say that the Democrats should be getting somewhere between 55 to 60 votes to convict. Very probably at most 57. And I'm being very fucking generous here. Um, so we have that up to like 57. I mean, we already have like, let's think about it. We have, yeah, I guess 57 is like a pretty good number. Um, but I don't know if if it's going to be enough to convict. Like, I think it's very unlikely that they have enough votes to convict unless a lot of Republicans boycott instead of voting for it, which still helps the votes for it. And we have like, I don't know, man. Like, in any case, the people that vote for it are going to be facing some tough challenges ahead in order to stay in power, much like the Republicans that voted to convict Trump on the House. And we're already seeing the Republicans starting to break away from their Mitch-led coalition of obstructionism because quite they're voting a lot on the appointees that Biden is putting forward. Like it's not party line votes, you know. So I think we might be seeing a bit more bipartisanship, and we're also going to be seeing the Republicans struggling to cooperate on certain things. So filibuster might be a thing to prevent like um, statehood from being passed, but I would say, you know what, as a Democrats, either nuke the filibuster, which seems like that's not going to happen because there's a few Joe fucking the Democrat from West Virginia, Mnuchin or something, Manchin. So Joe Manchin, sorry, Mnuchin is the fucking Trump guy. He's standing in the way, so fuck him. But still, That might not be possible, but you know what? I would call the bluff. I would make Mitch stand in there, fucking have to stand up and talk for like 18 hours until he has a fucking heart attack and dies on Senate chamber. Like, I don't give a fuck. Make the fucker actually have to put an effort in filibustering. And there you go. And I mean, you would only need to actually tough out the filibuster for the DC statehood vote, because as soon as you get that, you're going to get more senators for the Democrats, like two very progressive senators too. So you know what? That's fine. Tough out the fucking filibuster and then just shove shit down Mitch McConnell's throat. You know, easy peasy. That said, though, that's it for the video. I hope you guys liked it. I hope good things come from this. I hope that America becomes a better place, and I hope that the Republicans just fucking die as a party, and we have Trump-tards and the such just fighting amongst each other, being completely ineffective politically, and we have a leftward shift in American politics. Have a good day, have a good week, stay alive, take care of yourselves. See you next video. Bye bye, boys.